I am Dane Drew, and this is my marketing research project for MKX420. I did a crop yield survey. The first step of this research was defining the problem of what brand of seed produces the highest yield. This research is important because it will help determine what brand of seed works best in this geographic location based on weather conditions, soil types, tillage, and fertilizer rates. The objective of this research is to help Drew Farms determine which seed works best in this area so they can be a more profitable company. The survey I used consisted of 10 questions. Question number 1 was, what kind of weather conditions did you have in your area? Question 2 was your 2013 corn crop planted using crop rotation? Number 3, what type of terrain was your best yielding corn planted in? Number 4, is your fertilizer spread using variable rate technology or VRT? Number 5, was your 2013 corn crop planted using no-till? Number 6, what brands of seed corn do you plant? Number 7, what was your average yield? Number 8, what was your highest yielding brand? Number 9, please list the number of your highest yielding corn in 2013. And number 10, would you plant your highest yielding seed again? For my research, I used two different types of designs. I used the exploratory design and the causal design. The exploratory design was used to gain insight into the leading brands of seed. The causal design was used when looking at variables that had an impact on the yields. This research was analyzed using the ratio scale. The ratio scale is measurement that has a natural or absolute zero and therefore allows the comparison of absolute magnitudes of the numbers. This type of scale was used for this research because this scale provides the actual yield numbers, tillage type, and highest yielding brand for each farmer. The ratio scale provided the most valid results because actual yield numbers were obtained from farmers. People were randomly selected from different sections of Whitley County for the survey. By attaining yields from each section of the county, it made the research more reliable and valid because it took into account all of the different soil types and farming types such as no-till or conventional tillage, as well as different fertilizer usages since everyone does not farm exactly the same way. This survey was also able to take different weather conditions into consideration since not every area in the county received the exact same amount of rainfall. This survey was limited to farmers that spread fertilizer using VRT, which is variable rate technology. Since the survey used the ratio scale and the farmers had the yield data and type of seed planted readily available from the yield monitors on their combines, the results from the survey were reliable. The sample size was 11 based on the confidence level of 95% with a confidence interval of 30 and a population of 1,318. Population was obtained from the number of subsidy recipients in the Whitley County zip code. A confidence interval of 30 was used, which allowed an area sample from each section of the county to be conducted. The code book, which is shown here, was created containing numerical values representing each response for all the questions contained in the survey, with the exception of the factual open-ended questions. Results of the survey were entered directly into an Excel spreadsheet following the variables in the code book. After analyzing the data, and the top 3 brands were picked, and the remaining brands were grouped into one category called Other, since each of these brands had only one respondent who planted them. 2 of the questions asked respondents to provide a yield number. These 2 questions were a vital part of the survey, but they could not be coded. Each survey was reviewed for completeness prior to data preparation. Data preparation included checking each survey for consistency and ensuring all questions had been completed. One survey returned was missing a response to the type of terrain. This survey was used, but the question involving the missing terrain was left blank due to the coding process due to validity. The remaining data collected seemed to be consistent and truthful. A problem was encountered when entering the data that some of the questions could have very broad answers. The survey had 4 open-ended questions, and for each question, the data was broader than expected. To analyze the data, a frequency analysis was used, which provided quick results for each of the questions. This type of analysis was chosen because it was easy to see the most common brand of seed planted and the highest yielding brand. After the data was received and tabulated, the frequency chart shown was used to determine the highest yielding brand as well as the brand most often planted. As you can see in the chart, most of the respondents had normal conditions for weather, and they also had, most of the respondents had rolling terrain. In the chart on the right, you can see that DeKalb was the most planted brand. DeKalb was also the highest yielding brand. In these charts, the chart on the top left, you can see which brands of corn the farmers planted. And this chart shows that each farmer planted, there were some farmers that planted more than one brand. On the chart on the top right, it shows the highest yielding brand, which is DeKalb, with 6 of the respondents having DeKalb as their highest brand. The bottom left chart shows rainfall, which most of the respondents had normal conditions, and the bottom right chart shows that most of the respondents used conventional tillage instead of no-till. Cross tabulations were done because the relationship between some of the variables was important. Cross tabulation was done between the average yield and the type of tillage used. The relationship between these two variables provided important insight into which type of tillage method provided the highest yields. As you can see in the chart, conventional tillage was used in the majority of the highest yields. A second cross-tabulation was done looking at yield and crop rotation. The chart on the bottom shows that using crop rotation will result in higher yields the majority of the time. A regression analysis was done using the average as the predictor and the variables of highest brand and type of terrain. The R-square shows 67% of the variation in yield average is explained by the brand and terrain. Looking further at the results, the p-value shows that the highest yielding brand does have an effect on the average yield even though multiple brands of seed were planted. Since the p-value of the terrain is greater than 0.05, this seems to have no impact on yield. After conducting the survey and carefully analyzing the results, the conclusion was reached that DeKalb was the overall highest yielding brand. The top brand planted was also DeKalb. The data retrieved from the survey shows that 8 people used conventional tillage while 3 people used no-till. 6 of the farmers who used conventional tillage had an average yield that was above 206 bushels to the acre, while only 2 of the farmers using no-till had an average yield of above 206. The number of farmers